Right. Good evening, everyone. Okay. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. All right. So let's just give a few minutes for more people to join in. Let's say about 4 minutes. Right. So we'll start. Excuse me. We'll start 7:05 on the dot. So please chat up your friends as well. Good evening, Happy. Nice to see you as well. Good evening for you, Salah. Good evening, Madam Kendi. Good evening, Christiana. Yeah, how's our day? Good evening, Bola Tito. Okay. Mm, alrighty, alright. So 3 more minutes. Hope you can all hear me. Okay. Happy. My day has been busy. Very, 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 very busy. Um, I guess that's what we're signed up for. Some days are like that, right? There are days when it's light, and there are days when it's busy, like today. So my day has been busy. For yeah, I did not have a stress-free day. Oh. I had a very stressful day. Yeah, I believe I'm better. I believe I'm better. I think just like you guys suggested, I should be eating fruits. So I'm trying to implement that. Yeah, so I believe I'm much better. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hi, Tina. Good evening. Good evening. Hi, Deborah. Good evening, too. Amen. No, Bolatito, it is really well. It is very well. Victoria, good evening. Yes, so we have very few on the call this night. Apologies again for yesterday's class not holding. We really sincerely apologize for scattering our schedule. I know a lot of people did not plan for today's class, so please bear with us. Hopefully, that will be the last time we would have to reschedule a class. So, hope I am forgiving and we are forgiving. Oshala, good evening. Yeah, I also saw chats about the assignment. I think some people's assignment has been graded. It might take a bit of time. Reason being, we'll have to read through all of each person's assignment and to give comments on it, basically. But as long as you submitted, just be rest assured that you are graded. You are graded 100 for submission. Then comments will be passed on what you submitted to say, okay, you did very well, or there's a little bit that you can do better here, do better here and there, right? So in case you've not gotten those feedbacks, yes, it will get to you, basically. So calm down and thank you for forgiving me. Ẹ ṣé o, a dúpẹ́ o. All right. Yeah, I said only Yoruba, so ẹ ṣé o, Nagode, Dalu. So I think I've balanced all the tribes. Okay. Yes, those are submitted to me directly. It was also taken note of. I've marked one of the Olusholas. I think there's one person's one so but those are submitted to me directly. It was taken into consideration as well. You were also marked. Yeah. So okay, so it's 7:06. Yep. So let's get into today's business. Are we ready for today's class? Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Can I proceed? Can I proceed to today's class? All right. Thank you, Evelyn. All right. Okay. Okay. So, as we all can see, my slides, we're looking at cost management and optimization in AWS today. Ah, Madam Gloria, thank you. Is the light. Thank you, Gloria. Give me a minute now. Okay. So I'll try to monitor the charts as much as or as often as possible. Right. Okay. So we're looking at cost management and optimization in AWS. And we've talked about how AWS provides flexible, scalable cloud services, right? But in as much as we try to preach the fact that cloud is not expensive, right? It can become very, very expensive if you don't manage your costs well enough. If you don't manage it well enough, it can eat you. It can eat you very hard, right? And why it is important is that optimizing your resources can help you to reduce your costs while still maintaining the same performance efficiency, right? And then AWS has resources, they have tools that can help you to spend wisely. And before I go in, I'll use myself as example. On my personal AWS account, I did a mini project, and I forgot to put in place some things. And before I knew it, I'd already spent about $100 plus, right? And we know what that's cost in today's naira, right? And I was so I was so shocked, right? And the way it works is in AWS, if you don't pay your bill at the end of the month, they'll send you reminders, 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 reminders. If you still do not pay, they'll send you warning. If you still do not pay, they'll suspend your account. After after a certain period of time, and you still did not pay, they would um, dis deactivate your account, right? So they will deactivate that account basically. So it's important that we learn these things so that we don't fall into the same pothole that I fell into. All right. So in today's class, we're going to be looking at AWS pricing models. We'll be looking at AWS cost management tools and things that you can also use to optimize your cost basically. So those are the three things we'll be focusing on today. All right. So first on our list is pricing model. So there are three major pricing models that AWS operates. They have the on demand, which is also known as pay as you go, right? pay as you go. They have the reserved instance and the spot instance. So we'll be looking into those three pricing models. Okay, so pay as you go pricing model, which is the same thing as on demand. If you hear me say on demand, or just know that still the same saying the same thing as pay as you go. So I can use them, interchangeably. That's the word. Interchangeably. All right. Hope we can all still hear me. Please confirm we can all still hear me and see my screen well. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Idiri. Good evening, by the way. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Peace. Okay. So pay as you go pricing model, right? It's basically when you pay for the resources that you use, right? Be it your compute or your storage, right? EC2, S3, whatever it is, right? There's no need to plan ahead. There's no need to predict future needs. So AWS will only bill you for exactly what you use. And a typical example we can use that all of us can relate with is like uh your light bills, right? Before they did prepaid, where um you know you pay first and then they start deducting your money based on what you use. There used to be the old meter type where at the end of the month they give you your bill based on what you have used. Although we know that that billing system in Nigeria electric setting was not very transparent, right? But that was supposed to be the idea, is that you use electricity, and then there are metrics that is being measured, and at the end of the month they give you your bill for exactly what you use. So if you don't use, in short, now that we use prepaid, right, we when you buy your electricity, if you switch off everything, they are not charging you, right? It is whatever you use that they will deduct from your money, basically, right? So similar thing with the pay as you go model in AWS. If, for example, you have your EC2 on a pay as you go model or on demand model, right? It means that they will only charge you for the EC2 instance is charged per hour. So they will only charge you for the times that your EC2 instance is running. Now, what's the key features of pay as you go model? Is that it is flexible and it is scalable. It's flexible in the terms that you can always stop your instances, restart them when you want, right? Maybe as you're using prepaid meter, you can switch off all your lights. You can, if you are going out, you can put your light to neutral, right, so that it is not reading. At the times when your light is in neutral, nobody's deducting money from your bill, right, or charging you for what you did not use. Then also the scalability is in terms of you don't have to think too much before you can scale, especially when you are on the on demand, right? It means if you are using one is only one EC2 instance today and you are paying for it and you feel like, oh, tomorrow I need more, you can easily just add more to it. There's no long story attached to it, right? Now, how does this work, right? If an example basically is, if you run an EC2 instance for 10 hours, let's say we launch an EC2 instance, for example, and we left it running for 10 hours, and then after that 10 hours, you shut it down. At the end of the month, right, AWS will only bill you for that 10 hours that your EC2 instance was running for. They will only bill you for that 10 hours, right? For the period when it is shut down, they will not charge you until maybe you now start up the instance again. If you restart the instance again, they will now start charging you. But you are only charged for when the service is running, basically. Most or almost all of the services in AWS has a pay as you go pricing model. They all of them basically utilize that model. Although there are other models, and we'll see the services that can use those other models as well. So when is it advisable to actually use on-demand or pay-as-you-go pricing model? Is one, if you are a new business, right? Maybe you are a new organization, you just built this application, you are not so sure of what the usage will be like, you are not so sure of the traffic and all of those things, right? Then it is advisable that you use on demand, that you don't use maybe reserved instance or sports instances, right? It's better, it is recommended that you actually use on demand pricing model. So it means that if you want to spin off your EC2 instance, for example, when they ask what kind of pricing model, it is better that you choose on demand and you go for on demand, right? Then, of course, it's also recommended to use pay as you go pricing model when you are not so sure of uh, the maybe your workload usually fluctuates. You're not very sure. Today is 50 people that visit. Tomorrow is 30. Next tomorrow is 25. Upper next tomorrow is 60. Next the day after that is 10. There's no stable there's no stable trend basically. So when you don't have a trend as to how your workload works, right, then it is advisable that you actually use on demand. Now, what's the benefit of on demand or pay as you go? Number one is there's no upfront cost, right? So you're not paying AWS anything ahead of time. You only pay at the end of the month after they've calculated what you've used, right? Number of hours that your instance was running for example, for S3 now they'll calculate uh what they call it now, your the number of data or the amount of data that you have in your S3 and such like that. So you get your bill at the end of the month, and then you pay to AWS to offset that bill, right? Then, of course, another benefit is that it is perfect for unpredictable workloads, right? If, for example, you've started your workload, you've been using this maybe application for like a year. To an extent, you can measure the trend. You can say, okay, in January we used to have high kidney, in February we used to have low. You have a trend, right? So you can better plan. But when you're just starting, you don't have a trend, there's no pattern that you can follow. So it is usually advisable that you use on demand. Then, of course, for when you're using a pay as you go, you can always stop and start the services at your whenever it is that you feel like it, right? There will be no penalties attached to it if you're using on demand. If you start up an EC2 instance, for example, and you feel like after 1 hour you don't want to use the instance anymore, maybe you're just testing something, you can stop it. AWS will not send you a message and say, why did you stop your instance? So you can stop your services at any time, you can restart them at any time according to how you want it. So that's all about the pay as you go model. Now, the second model is the reserved instance model. Reserved instance model. Now, basically, what this means is you are reserving something, right? So, like the way I said, we've said before that AWS has data centers, right? And if you as an organization is saying, oh, I want to put my workload on AWS, what you're basically doing is telling AWS, give me space, or you're renting space in AWS data center, right? So they'll give you a portion of their server, right? Depending on what you request for, right? Maybe it's a 4 vCPU, 8 gig RAM, right? They'll find your specification and give that to you, right? In or on their data center. Now, the way for on demand, right? For the pay as you go one that we talked about earlier, if you say, okay, I want to use a 2 vCPU 4 gig RAM EC2 instance, right? AWS will look for that space in their server room, and then allocate that particular stuff to you, right? That you'll be using. Now, if you stop the instance and you restart it, right, they might not give you that exact one again, right? They might give you another one, still the same thing, your specification, right? But might not be in the same um server rack, might be on another server rack, right? But when you say you want a reserved instance, it means that you are saying, okay, you are committing to use this particular resources for a period of time. Now, for reserved instances in AWS, right, it is usually between one, either you are reserving for 1 year or you are reserving for 3 years. It's either you reserve for 1 year or you reserve for 3 years. You cannot reserve for 2 years, right? So it's either 1 or 3 years. So when you say, "Oh, I'm reserving this instance for 1 year," it means that you are committing to use it. Say, for example, if I start up an EC2 instance, right, maybe a T3 family EC2 instance, and I'll say, "Oh, okay, I know that I will need this instance throughout the year," right? I can decide to do what? To reserve it for a year, or I can decide to reserve it for 3 years. Now, what is the essence of reserving? Is that you now get a 75% discount. If, for example, AWS is charging maybe $100, right? Just as an example, AWS is charging $100 per hour, right? For T3 family EC2 instance, right? Now, if you decide to reserve for 1 year, you can get up to 75% discount, which means that instead of paying $100, right, you'll be paying $25 for that instance for the period that you have reserved it for. For that period that you have reserved it for, you'll be paying only $25, right? You can see that it's a very big discount, right? Now, what's the key feature of it is that, of course, you pay a reduced rate, right, in exchange for committing to a long-term usage. You are promising AWS that I hereby solemnly swear that I will use this instance for 1 whole year. I'm not going to stop it or shut it down or anything like that. You are making that commitment, right? That's basically what you are doing. And then for that commitment, AWS is giving you a lower price. I don't know if you've heard of maybe organizations, right? That even for subscriptions, there are some subscriptions that you will see that if you are doing a monthly subscription, they will tell you that you are going to pay $20 per month, right? They'll not tell you that if you want to do for a year, you want to pay for a year, right? They will reduce it, and by the time you calculate it, instead of paying maybe $20 a month, you probably end up paying just $10 for a month, right? Because they know that, oh, this person, we are sure of this person's patronage for 1 year. This person has committed to that 1 year. So to repay your commitment, they give discount. Now, how does reserved instance work, right? You pay either fully upfront, partially upfront, or nothing upfront. What does that mean? If, for example, we are going to see in the coming slides, right, examples of the costs of some of this EC2 instance, right? If, for example, the EC2 instance that I want to reserve is $100. I can decide that, okay, AWS, so I'm going to pay, since I'm going to be using it for 1 year, right? Maybe it is $100 per month. So I can decide to pay 100 times 12 will be what, $1,200. So I can say to pay all the $1,200, right, upfront, right? And I can say, okay, I'm not going to pay all the 1,200 upfront. I'm going to pay $500, and then you will now spread the remaining $700 over the remaining months, right? So I'm paying $500 out of 1,200 now. Then over the next 11 months, they will spread the remaining $700, right? So, or you can decide that I'm not going to pay anything upfront, but I have made the commitment to do what? To reserve this instance. Just be sending me my bill at the end of the month and I will be paying the bill, right? So that's what it means by, you can do either fully upfront, which is pay everything for the 1 year or the 3 year that you're reserving it, or partially upfront, which means you're paying part of the payment for the entire year that you're reserving it, and then they will spread the remaining balance over the months that is remaining. Or you're not paying anything upfront, right? They will be sending you your bill every month. So if it is $100 for reserved instance, right, every month, you'll be paying the $100 every month. Then, of course, in return for you paying either of that, they give you a lower rate. We are going to see some of the rates in the comment slide. Now, when is it recommended that you use reserved instance? It is recommended that you use reserved instance when you have a steady workload, right? Say, for example, the organization I was giving an example about that. This organization, you've been using your application for maybe a year or 6 months, right? Or 3 months. You've noticed that, okay, this is over the time we're using this particular workload, though, it was we're using it very, very well, right? We're probably using it like a 80% utilization or 90% utilization. So you know that that particular instance is good for you, right? So you now decide that, okay, since I'm already sure that this instance is good for my workload, instead of me paying maybe $20 per hour for on demand, I want to reserve it for 1 year, right? I'm making a commitment to AWS. I'm going to be using this EC2 instance for a year, right? And then AWS will now reduce it. Instead of you paying $20 per hour, they'll now reduce it to maybe like a $10 per hour, or $5 per hour, or $7.5 per hour, depending on the discount, right? Then of course, so you know that this is it, you have a predictable way of that your workload will run. Then you also know that you are going to be using it consistently for that period of time, right? Now, the fallout with reserved instance is that once you commit to using a particular service, right? For example, EC2 instance, right? Once you commit to using it, whether or not you shut it down, or you stop the instance, so it is your headache. AWS at the end of the month will send you your bill. So it means that you don't reserve instances when you are not sure of how you are going to use it. When you are not sure that, oh, I'm going to need this instance for this whole period, right? Or when you are not sure of, maybe for example, you are just starting, right? You're just starting your business. You just created this application, just created this website. You're not sure of the traffic. You now decided that, oh, I'm going to use a 4 vCPU 16 gig RAM, right, for my instance. Ah, excuse me. I'm going to use 4 vCPU 16 gig RAM for my instance, right? And then after a month, you now see that, excuse me. Sorry, please let me put off this. Okay. All right. So after a month, you now see that, this instance that launched, we're only using 20% of it. We need to reduce the size of the instance, right? If you have already reserved that instance, you will not be able to reduce the size. You won't be able to reduce the size. You'll be stuck with actually, using it, whether or not you are fully utilizing it. So that is why it is only recommended that you reserve instances when you are sure of the traffic you'll be getting on the your instance or on your database, and what have you. Please give me, excuse me, miss. Let me get an handkerchief for myself. Okay, sorry. Please, can we still hear me? Can we still hear me, please? Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Tina. Okay, so hope we've gotten all that I've said so far. Right, so moving to types of reserved instances, there are two types of reserved instances, right? Um, there's the standard reserved instance and there's the convertible reserved instance, right? Now, the one is much more, for one, you have more savings, more discounts than the other. For reserved instance, right, it will give you the most savings, it will give you the most discounts, right? But it gives you less flexibility. For example, you cannot change instance type. You can't change instance type. If, for example, when you actually launched your instance, you were using a compute optimized instance, right? And then later on, you now realize that, oh, what your workload actually needs is a storage optimized instance. You will not be able to change it. You won't be able to change it. You'll be stuck with that particular instance type because you have reserved it for a year or for 3 years, depending on your choice. While for convertible, you will not have as much discount, right? But you still have the flexibility of changing the instance type or changing the instance family, right? Maybe you want to move from a T3 family to a T4 family, right? Or you want to move from a compute optimized instance type to a storage optimized instance type. You can still change it, right? You can change the type, but please note that you are committed to using it for that period of time. So what will happen is, if you increase the size of your instance now, AWS will recalculate your money, right? And then tell you what is left or what the balance is, what the applicable discount is. Now, what is the benefit of reserved instance, right? Number one is you can save up to 75%. Number two is that you have predictable billing, right? Because you already know how much is going to cost you for that 1 month. You can always budget as an organization. The organization can always budget because they know that, okay, since we are reserving for a year, right? And AWS has said if you are reserving for 1 year, it's going to be $10 per hour. So we can calculate what we'll be spending and always use that to make our budget as a company, right? It means that if tomorrow AWS says, sorry, economy is not good, and we are increasing the cost of launching EC2 instance from $10 to $12, because you have reserved, it will not concern you. That change will only affect those that are on demand, right? It will not concern you at all. For that period that you have reserved the instance, you'll be paying what was agreed, what they charged you from the beginning. So if it was $10 per hour that they charged you from the beginning, that's what you pay throughout the period of your reservation, right? If they increase it, it doesn't affect you. If they reduce it to maybe $5, it still does not affect you. It is still at your $10 that you'll be paying. So you have predictable billing. Then of course there's flexibility with different payment option. You can decide to pay everything upfront. You can decide to pay part of it. You can decide that, okay, I'll just be paying at the end of the month. So you also have that flexibility with how you want to pay. Now, services that actually offers reserved instances in AWS, right? You have your EC2 instance, you have your RDS. RDS is your relational database, be it for MySQL or Postgre or Oracle, whatever it is, right? Any of the RDS, you can reserve them. DynamoDB, you can reserve Redshift, which is AWS data warehouse service you can also reserve, and the Amazon Elastic Cache. Now, can we see this image that is at the bottom? Can we all see it? Oh, Deborah, I'm so sorry. I'm just seeing your text. Okay. So can we see the, okay, we can all see it. It's a bit small. Oh boy. Ah, what can I do by trying to see if, okay, no, this is not what I want to do. Did it get better? I tried to zoom a bit. Did it get better at any point? Okay. Um Should you give me 1 minute? Let me just put it on its own slide so that I can enlarge it there. Give me a minute. Just 1 minute. So I'll be able to see it well. Okay. Um, is it slightly better? I know it's not the best right now, but is it slightly better? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Tina. Okay. So now let's look at this together, right? So this is, let's assume that this organization wants to reserve this particular instance type, right? This is the EC2 instance that they want to use. So they want to reserve it, right? Now, these are the different prices. This is, if they are doing on demand, this is how much they'll be paying. They'll pay $0.478 per hour, right? And it is said that in a month there's 730 hours, right? 730 hours. So which means that per month they would be using about 0.478 multiplied by 12. Let me quickly get that. 478 multiplied by 12. 0.478 multiplied by 730, rather 730 hours, right? Because it's per hour, so it's 730 hours in a month, right? So 730 hours, so it means in a month, if this organization was doing on demand, they'll be paying $348.94, right? They're paying $348.94. Now, if they decide to reserve this instance for 1 year, if they are doing no upfront, that means they are not paying anything to AWS ahead, right? They'll be paying $0.36, right, per hour. They're paying $0.36 per hour, which will come to $262, $262.80 in a month. That's if they are not paying any upfront. Now, if they are doing a partial upfront, maybe they are doing 1,304, what are they calling it now, dollars, right, upfront. That's what they are paying. For the rest of the remaining months, they will only be paying $120.45, which means that if we want to calculate that, if we want to quickly do a little bit of maths, right? 120.45, right, divided by 730. So it means that they are actually going to be paying 0.16, right, for the remaining months, for the remaining months that they will be making payments. While for their upfront is 1,004. That's out of what they are supposed to pay for the entire year. They are paying $1,304, right? And then let's divide that by 12 is 108. Then this divided by 730. So they're paying about $0.16 per hour. That's if they're doing a partial upfront. Now, if they are doing a full upfront, right? Full upfront. For full upfront, it means that they are paying everything. So this is the amount. If you look at this hourly rate, you will see how the prices is different, right? Depending on their payment option. This all of these are under reserved instance, right? All of these are under reserved instance. But if they are not paying anything upfront, their hourly will be 0.36. If they are doing partial upfront, their hourly will be 0.31. If they are doing all upfront, their hourly will be 0.30. Now look at how much their savings on the side. If they are doing no upfront, they are having a 25% savings over the on demand. If they are doing partial upfront, they're having a 34% savings over the on demand. If they're having what I call it, if they're doing all upfront, they're going to have 36% savings over the on demand, right? So in a this amount might look small, right? This amount might look like, oh, the amount is not so much, the difference discount is not plenty until you accumulate it, right? If, for example, the person is doing this all upfront, this person is paying just $2,694, right, for the entire year, for the entire 1 year, compared to someone that is doing um on demand, right? On demand is 0.478, right, per hour, multiplied by 730. That's how many hours that in a month, then multiply by 12 months in a year. Multiply by 12 months in a year. So if the person is doing on demand, the person will be paying $4,187.28 for 1 year. While if the person reserves this instance and pays all upfront, it will only be paying $2,694 for the entire 1 year. Now it means that that person has been able to save more than $1,000 in 1 year. Now calculate it of if this person is using this instance for 3 years, 4 years, and see how much they would have been able to save, right? So those, even though the discount, when you look at it hourly, is looking like, oh, there's not much difference, 0.36, 0.31. But when you begin to accumulate it together, right, accumulate it, you see that there's actually a massive saving going on. Now, this image on the right is showing, this blue line represents what? On demand, right? This yellow line represents if you are doing a reserved instance, let's say partial upfront. You will see that when you are using 0% utilization, right? You are not being charged. The higher your utilization, which is 100% here, the higher the amount you start paying. But for partial upfront, you see that it's a straight line. It is whatever you have been billed at the beginning that you're going to be billed till the end of your reservation, right? Nothing concerns AWS with how you are using it anymore. Do we all understand this reserved instance? Any question on this part for now? Yes, full upfront helps you to save more. Full upfront helps you to save more. Yeah, Adeshaya. It does help you to save more. But some organizations will tell you that, oh, they don't have $2,000 to start to pay upfront, or that they want to do maybe partial upfront or something. Okay, so we all understand. So let's move to the next one. Okay, so sports instance, and this is where it becomes a little bit dicey, right? Now, what sports instance does is that it allows you to bid on AWS capacity, right, at 90% discount of the on-demand price, right? But AWS can reclaim these instances at any time. Now, to explain it, right, how it works, you know, like I said, AWS has their data center. In their data centers, they have servers, right? So different organizations that want to say, well, I want to put my workload on AWS. All that AWS is doing is what? Giving them space on their server that is in their that is in AWS what data center, right? That's what AWS is doing. So AWS is renting space on their server to organizations or to you that you want to put your workload in AWS. That's what they are doing. Now, let's assume that they have 10 servers. Just imagine they have just 10 servers. And each of the servers, they probably have maybe about 16 rack, right? Each containing different computing power. Now, if only five of that rack is being used by customers, right? Maybe somebody have reserved it, somebody is doing on demand or something, right? Which means that they still have what, about five left. What they will now do is those five that they have, so that it is not just sitting down in the data center not doing anything, they'll kind of do like a banjo banjo banjo, where you go and buy a let's say a fashion house, right? That they are trying to clear off their old goods, right? They will be hearing 90% off, 90% off, exactly. That's what AWS is trying to do. So rather than have the server just sitting there not doing anything, what they will do is they will give it at 90% off the on-demand price. Let's say for example, if an on-demand EC2 price is $100, right? A spot instance would be about $10. But it is a bidding process, which means that different organizations will bid for it, right? And then the best bidder would win. Let's say for example, if they start and say, okay, we have this servers instance typo for available at $10, and then company A comes and says, oh, I want to get it at $15. Company B comes and says, I want to get it at $20. Company C comes and says, I want to get it at $30, right? They'll give it to the company C, right, that bidded $30. But that person will still pay the $10. Will still pay the amount that was listed for that particular instance. Now, this is a very good thing, right? I mean, it is sweet. You're like, wow, everybody should be doing that one. Now, where the but is that they can take back that instance at any time. They can take back that instance at any time, right? Which means that you can be using your workload now, and then they will just alert you that, sorry, oh, in 2 minutes time you need to wrap up whatever it is that you're doing on the EC2 instance, so we want to use it, right? They can do that. So in as much as spot instance gives you the highest discount, right, it also has its challenges. So when is it recommended that you actually use spot instance? It is recommended that you use spot instance when you are running, like for batch jobs, right? Maybe you are trying to run a process that you can do in batches. So even if it stops running, you don't mind, right? Those kind of workloads are what you can use spot instance for. Maybe let's say for example, you need to generate a report, right, for 3 hours. Within that 3 hours is when you need the instance. After 3 hours, you no longer need the instance, right? So you can purchase spot instance for that period, but it means that within that period, any AWS can decide that they want their instance back. It means that if AWS takes back their instance, it will not affect what you are doing. It will not impact it. You can only start another day or another time, right? So you don't use spot instance for critical workload. You cannot go and put your company's website, right, on spot instance. It will just mean that your website just be doing daku daji because 1 minute you have bid, you won the bid, you are using the instance. The next hour, AWS say sorry, we want our space back, or give us our space, and they collect it, right? So the benefit of it is that it has very huge cost savings. I mean, who doesn't like 90% discount? 90% discount is sweet, right? And that it is also great for non-time sensitive workloads. Workloads that is not time bound, that you don't, if anything should interrupt it, you don't mind, right? You can always pick it up from wherever it is that it stopped, right? You can use spot instances for that. But the challenges, like I said, is what it can be interrupted at any time, which means that your workload, where you want to put it, that's what fault tolerance, which means you can set up an instance, right, on demand on a side, and just stop that particular instance, right, while you are doing your work on the spot instance. When you stop on demand, you are not paying. So you stop that one while you are doing your work on the spot instance, right? And then AWS gives you like a 2 minutes um grace. They will alert you to say, oh, we need this instance back, so you have 2 minutes to finish up your work or to clear up or whatever. Within that 2 minutes, you can create a snapshot of your EC2 instance, of where you are at, of what you've done at that moment, and then take that snapshot to the new one that you created and just spin off there and continue, right? So the challenges is that your instance can be interrupted at any point, and you have to have like a backup plan just in case they collect their workload back. Do we get this part? Would you want to use? Yes, exactly. You'll be notified, but the notification is very short. Adeshaya, notification is short. It's usually about 2 minutes. They'll just give you like a 2 minutes notification. So within that 2 minutes, you have to pack up. You have to pack up and leave. Right? You have to pack up and leave. It's like maybe you have a friend, right, that has, maybe the parent has an apartment somewhere, and then you were looking for house, right? You needed somewhere to quickly send and say, you can come and stay in this place, so but my parents are not around, right? But whenever they come, they must not meet you here. And then he just hears that, oh, the parents are already on the way, they're at the bus stop. And says, Shade, 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 my parents are on the way. What will you do? You quickly just pack everything. So in that kind of a apartment, you will not move bed. You're not going to be carrying chair there, because you know that you're not going to carry anything that is critical to you. You will probably carry only things that you can easily just pick, maybe a handbag that you can just pick and get out of the house, right? That's the same thing that happens with sport instances. All right, so we're all clear on that, right? Can we move on? Permission to move on. Is permission granted to move on? Deborah, yes. So, like Mr. Moses would say, I should fly. Yes, so let's fly then. All right, thank you. All right, so this table is basically a comparison of all of the models. I'm not going to run through it. We've talked about most of it. So when you get the slide, you can just read through, right? The difference between the three of them in terms of their payment structure, commitment, cost efficiency, flexibility, right? Pricing, what it is best suited for, what kind of workload it is best suited for, how available it is, right? Then use cases, reservation, billing cycle, management overhead, etc. So we can always read this when we get the slide. But we've touched on almost everything. Okay, so I added this particular slide, right? It's not a pricing model in the real sense of it, but to explain something. Now, when you want to launch an EC2 instance, right, they will ask you if it is a shared instance you want or a dedicated host. They will ask if it's a shared instance or a dedicated host. Now, what it means to say shared instance is this. If, for example, this is AWS server rack, right, in their data center, and this server rack, they have one, two, three, four, five, six, right? They have what are they calling that? They have six um servers, right, that is running on this particular rack. Now, if you are using a shared one, what it simply means that if Coca-Cola comes and say, "Oh, AWS, I need this particular EC2 instance type, blah blah blah," right? Or I want to start create an RDS, a database, and I need, this. What will happen is what AWS will reserve this one for customer one. Pepsi comes and say, "Oh, we need," they will give customer two this particular server. Um what are you calling it, which other organization, Biggie comes, they'll give Biggie this one, right? So for shared instances, right, it simply means that there will be multiple tenants on the server rack, right? There'll be multiple tenants on the server rack, so you only pay for the instance that you are using. You only pay for the instance that you are using as a person or as an organization. You're not paying for the entire server rack. Now, for dedicated host, it means that one organization is saying, only me want to have the entire server rack, right? No other customer, no other customer. Then for this shared one, right, AWS will be the one to decide which kind of hosts you can run on it, whether it is a Linux or is a Windows OS or it is a Ubuntu, right, or Red Hat. They'll be the one to decide. Say if you say you want Linux now, AWS say, okay, it is this server that we are giving for Linux. They'll put you here, right? So you cannot choose. They'll be the one to choose where it will be on their server rack. Well, if you are doing dedicated host, right, you own the entire server. You can decide that you want to put only Windows. You can decide that you want to put Ubuntu in the third one and put Linux in the first one. Whatever it is your choice, right? Because you own the entire rack in AWS data center. They know that when you get to AWS data center, they know that, okay, this one is for uh, Coca-Cola. No other customers' resources should be put on this particular server rack. Now, it is much more expensive. That's a dedicated host, of course, right? It's usually way more expensive because you're basically telling AWS that I want your entire rack. So whether you use the entire server capacity or not, if you are only using one out of the five, it does not concern AWS. You own everything, right? So I just wanted to mention this. Hope this is clear. So there's the shared one and then there's the dedicated host. Hope this is clear. Miriam, sorry. Yeah. What's the advantage of dedicated host? Very, very good question, Adeshayo. Very good question. So dedicated host is most times for customers that have maybe compliance issue, right? Maybe their organization's rule is that your data must not be shared with anything, right? So that there will be no mistake, there will be no error. It will not be that, oh, one AWS staff mistakenly went to go and plug kiniko kiniko kiniko. They don't even want to hear. Of course, those kind of errors don't happen. They're not things that you hear, right? Like that. But their rule is that they don't even want to let nothing like that, let it not be heard that you are sharing anything, right? So it kind of gives you, it gives you your own privacy. That's one. Of course, if you are doing instance, it gives you privacy too, but it gives you also the free will to choose, right? Say, like I said, if you are doing shared one, AWS will determine the kind of OS you can run on that particular instance, whether it is Windows or Linux. If on Thursday we're going to be doing TCO, total cost of ownership, right? For that one, sorry, we can go for our attendance. So yes, please, we can go for our attendance while I'm explaining this. Thank you. Please, let's go for our attendance. All right. So as I was saying, Adeshaya, right? If you want to, if we on Thursday when we go and when we're looking at total cost of ownership, right, I will show us what AWS pricing calculator is like, right? Now, what happens with that, or why I'm bringing that up rather, is that for a dedicated host, or if you want to spin off an EC2 instance, for example, in some region, they'll tell you that T3 family, you only have Linux. They don't have the OS, they don't have the Windows for T3 family, or it's only Windows they have, they don't have the Linux for it, right? But maybe you as an organization, you want that T3, but you don't want Linux, you want Windows, right? You can choose, since you own the entire rack, you can decide that you want to do um Windows. So, like Evelyn said, it gives you autonomy. It gives you the freedom to put whatever it is you want to put on the server, right? Irrespective of whatever AWS takes. So that's the advantage, so to say. Adisha, I hope that is understood. Yes, Happy, you can say it's like a private instance. It's like a your own private server, your own private server rack, but inside AWS data center. It's like your own private server rack, but inside AWS data center. It's like people that how do I play now? Let's, for example, you have an hotel room, right? Now, in the hotel room, different people will have different rooms. Everybody will purchase a room, right? That's the same way it is when you for shared instances. So you have your own room, I have my own room. Of course, you cannot enter my room without my permission, except I allow you, right? That's how the shared one is. Now, I can decide that, oh, I want to have my wedding, right? I don't want my guests to be disturbed. I don't want this. And then I rent out the entire floor. Maybe I rent out the entire floor, which means that no other guests will be allowed to do what? To come to that particular floor. I can decide that in that floor, if, for example, the hotel's rule is that in a room you cannot be more than two, right? Which means that if I'm doing the normal shared ones. Once I get a room in that hotel, it is only me and one other person that can sleep there. If we are four, it means we have to get another room, right? Because that's the hotel room. But if I rent out the entire floor, right? If I like, I should put 10 people inside one of the room on the floor. It does not concern the hotel anymore because I have rent the entire floor. So it gives me kind of autonomy to what I want to do. So hope hope it's clear. All right, Adeshayo, thank you for understanding. Okay, so we still have just 2 more minutes for our attendance. Happy you're welcome. 2 more minutes for our attendance. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. You can use this opportunity to stretch your leg. Don't be like Levina. Have I seen Levina today? Uh, I don't think Levina is in her class today. Levina that I will quickly go and eat during break. Yay. Yeah, we're not much in class today. I guess because today is not the regular class day, a lot of people probably had something else scheduled. So again, apologies for uh, kind of invading our schedule or scattering our plans. For those of us that are here, I really appreciate. Thank you. Okay, so I think we can come back. Are we all ready? Can we get back to class now so that we can finish up on time? Are we ready? Or like Mr. Okay. I was about to say like Mr. Moses would say, should I fly? Until now I've already said I should fly, so let's fly. All right. So now we've already spoken about pricing model. We're going to look at cost optimization now. Right? What does it mean to optimize cost? It's basically better manage your spendings, right? Better management of your spending. Right now, in um AWS, there are basically 5 pillars to cost optimization. One is to right size your instances, right? Increase elasticity, right? Pick the right pricing model, match usage to storage class, right? And then measuring and monitoring. Now, basically, each of these, uh, we've spoken about this one. Now, picking the right pricing model helps to optimize your cost. How? If, for example, you know that I use this particular kind of instance, I've used it for 2 months or 3 months, and this is my workload, this is how it is, right? I can decide to reserve it instead of doing on demand and I'm paying the highest possible price. I can reserve for a year or reserve for 3 years because I'm sure that, oh, I can use this, right? If I have a workload that is not very, very critical, that I don't mind it being interrupted, right? Instead of doing on demand or even reserving it, right? I can just do what? Use spot instances for the period of time that I quickly need it, right? And pay, have enjoy 90% discount. So picking the right pricing model for your workload helps to optimize your cost. It means you're not spending more than necessary. You're not spending more than what you should be spending, right? Then, of course, increase elasticity, right? If, for example, and I think I'm going to show us in another slide. Okay, so let me leave increase elasticity. I'll show us another slide. I'll also show us matching usage to storage. Now the last one, which is measuring and monitoring, right? For you to optimize costs, it means that you are monitoring what you are doing, right? There has to be a metrics. There has to be something that you have put in place to say, okay, um uh maybe are we using 80% of our EC2 instance? If we are not using 80% of our EC2 instance, are we supposed to be using this instance then? Should we actually maybe reduce it, right? So for cost optimization, you have to be monitoring, you have to be measuring something, right? And monitoring that metrics that you are measuring to say, okay, if it has gotten to this point, then I think that we need to downsize or increase or what have you, right? Because you also don't want a station where you are, because you want to pay small, right? You now affect your operational efficiency. So you want to pay the uh, lowest price possible, getting the best possible operational efficiency as well. Okay, so right sizing instances. Basically, right sizing means selecting the cheapest instance that is available while meeting your performance requirements, right? So if you've seen that what you need at the moment, your application that you just built only needs two vCPU or even one vCPU, 2 gig RAM. That's all that it needs. Whether or not you are imagining that the growth is going to come in the next 6 or 7 months, right? And then you need 10 vCPU. At that moment when you are starting it, start with the one vCPU, 2 gig RAM, right? Don't over provision. Don't over provision. And if you are already using something that is high and you see that your utilization is very low, if you are doing 20%, 30% on your instance, and you have watched it over a period of 6 months, it has never been higher than 40%, reduce it so that you stop spending so much but you're not utilizing it, right? It's like if you are single and you went to go and rent 8 bedroom apartment, and it's only you that want to live there. You will be paying for the 8 bedroom, but you're not utilizing it. You are only using one room. At most you probably use 2 room if you are feeling funky, right? But you're paying for it. You can downsize to a 2 bedroom if you want to feel fly. You can downsize to a mini flat. That way you still be efficient, right? You still be very efficient and not be spending more than necessary. So you can only set up your cloud watch. We've spoken about cloud watch before, right? To measure utilization and all of that to help you decide on when you need to downsize or to upsize or whatever have you. Now, it says the rule of the thumb is that what? You right size, then you reserve. You right size, then you reserve. Which means that before you will commit to reserving an instance, make sure that it is the right size of instance for your workload, right? Because when you once you reserve, of course, like I said, right, you've reserved it. Changing it becomes quite difficult, right? You probably, for some to even change, you might probably need to start writing to AWS and the like, right? So before you would reserve an instance, make sure that you have checked your metrics, you have checked your what you are measuring by, and you see that okay, this is the right size. So size first before you reserve instances. uh Elasticity, right? And reducing cost. Elasticity and reducing cost. Oh, so sorry. Yeah. So what this basically means is that, we've spoken about elastic auto scaling. Yes, thank you. Auto scaling, right? We've spoken about auto scaling. Now, When you right size and then you auto scale, it helps you to reduce cost. Look at this example here, right? If you are using a 5 M5 large EC2 instance that is being charged at $0.111 per hour, right? And you are now scaling, you have 29 of it, right? Because you needed to scale, you are using auto scaling. So your auto scaling rule is that at a certain point, give me 29, right, of it. So you're using 29 of it, and then you're spending $2,349.87 in a month. When you can actually do what? A T2 medium at this price and have 59 of it, which means that what? It's better to do what? Have more smaller what are they calling it now? Instances than have big instances. You can decide to use three small instances, right? And then their price will not even still be as high as what one large instance would be. Now look at the price for this one. This T22 medium, there's 59 of it, and the price is $2,239.64 per month for 59 of it. While for 29 of this one, it is 2003, which means 29 of this one is even still more than 59 of this one. So rather than go for this, why not do this? Right? Have times two of it. It will be able to take whatever the traffic you need, while still doing what? Reducing the cost, what you're spending. Now, the last one, right, is also to optimize your cost, leverage the right type of storage class, right? Especially for your storage, it's easy for your storage to go blah, right? For storage to chop your money, basically. But when you use the right storage class, we've spoken about S3, we spoke about infrequent access, Glacier, which is for your archiving. If you see that, oh, these files, this one, nobody has touched them, it has not been accessed in 3 years or in 1 year or even in 6 months, you can move them to the archive. Why? Because the amount you will pay for archive is lower than what you pay for the regular standard S3, right? So you need to be sure of what are the kind of needs that I have, and then choose the perfect storage class for that need. The same thing for your EBS. Look, if what you need is HDD, use HDD. Don't go and provision SSD and then you'll be paying more, right? If it is a SSD you need, use SSD, right? So make sure that what you are using is what you need, that you're not overdoing anything, so that you're not going to be spending too much, basically. So those are things that you can do to actually optimize your cost, manage your cost. Okay. Last one here that I'm going to mention is what? Also using serverless, right? In a situation where, of course, if you're using EC2 instance, you're paying for the server, right? If you have workloads, remember when we talked about Lambda and we said Lambda is event driven. If your workload is those kind of workload, rather than using EC2 instance, you can use Lambda, right? With those kind of serverless things, you're not going to be paying for server management, right? Because the way the serverless basically works is that AWS is one that is managing everything for you. You are not patching anything, you are not updating anything, right? You are not paying for server in the real sense of it, or in the literal sense of it. So you can also look into using serverless architecture for databases, right? Your DynamoDB is your Aurora, right, is a serverless database. You can use that rather than using your RDS. So look, there are always options, there are always alternatives to things. And that's one of the beautiful thing about AWS is that they have a lot of resources. They have a lot of resources. So one resource can have two options. You can have different options of different things that are doing the same thing or similar things. So always look out for some of these things. Now, cost management tools, right? We've spoken about um, pricing model. We've spoken about how to optimize your cost, right? Optimizing your cost by right sizing your instances. Right sizing means make sure that the size of instance that you are using is what you need. You are not over provisioning, and then you're now underutilizing the instance, right? Use the appropriate storage class, right? All of those things are your cost optimization things you can do to optimize your cost. Now, AWS cost management tools. What are the things or the resources in AWS that you can use to actually manage costs? You can use to explore what you are spending and the likes, right? One is the cost explorer. You have the AWS budget, and then you have the AWS cost and usage report. Now, AWS cost explorer, what does it do? So it's like your dashboard, right? It shows you what you have spent over a period of time. So it gives you a visual, it visualizes it, right? It's not giving you in, it's not just giving you in CSV, right? In a table format, it gives you a graph of it, that okay, in July this was how much you spent, in August this is how much you spent, right? So you're able to, from the graph, because it's in a graph kind of mode, right? You're able to see this the trend. You're able to see when your cost is going up, or oh, my cost has reduced, or oh, my cost has remained constant over this period of time, right? That's what the cost explorer does. And you can break down the cost, right, by your service. Maybe you want to see cost for maybe compute, so it will show you cost for your EC2 instances, your Lambda, whatever it is that falls on that compute, right? Or you want to see storage, whatever service you are using that falls on that storage, it will show it to you by the time that you want to see it. Maybe you want to see it for daily, or you want to see it per month, right, or per year, or you want to see it. Maybe you have some workload in North Virginia region, you have some workload in Ohio region, and you want to see the cost for different regions. So you can always filter or break down the cost by those things. So it will show you in a graphical way the trends of your cost. What is the key feature of the Cost Explorer? Number one is that it gives you an historical view. So it's because it is in a graphical form, right? You're able to see how your spending has changed, right? How your spending has changed between today to tomorrow, between last week and this week, between last month and this month, between last year and this year, right? So you have that historical view. Also, one of the features of Cost Explorer is that it's forecast, right? Based on what you've spent in the past. It will give you that this is what is predicting that you're going to spend this month. If you spent maybe $400 last month, right? It will tell you that, oh, based on your past spending, this is what I predict that you're going to spend in November, right? Based on what you spent in October. So it has that forecasting feature. Then of course you can create custom filter, right? So you can drill down by service, like I said. If maybe you are using your organization as an AWS organization account, right, where they now have different other AWS accounts under them, you can drill down to see the cost of each of the AWS accounts, right? So you can decide that you want to see how much you are spending on EC2 alone over the month, right? You can decide that I want to see how much I'm spending on S3 alone over the months, right? So you can customize the filter to your satisfaction. And what's the advantage of the Cost Explorer? It is easy to use, right? Because of course it's giving you visuals, right? It's giving you graph. You're able to visualize it, so it is easy to kind of understand. I will show you a picture in the next slide, right? So I will kind of understand. When you see graphs, it's easy for you to see, oh, this thing is going down or this thing is going up, rather than when this is in a table, right? Number two is that what it has actionable insights. So it can help you to see areas where you are overspending, right? And then it can also tell you, okay, this is in this place, so I think you should reserve this instance based on what you have been spending. I think that I would recommend that you reserve this instance, right? Because you have been using this for this certain period of time, and it is your workload is predictable, your traffic is predictable. So it can recommend, give you actionable insight. Then of course, like I mentioned, you can forecast, right? So it will give you the ability to predict future expenses and to be able to plan your budget accordingly. So that's AWS Cost Explorer. Now, this is what it looks like, right? Just an overview of it. You see here, this is the graph, right? From this graph here, what can you see? What's the first thing that you can see here in this graph? Just looking at the graph, what comes to mind? Mm. If I show you this slide now, this particular graph, what kind, apart from the color and the shades, what's please say this mass, what knowledge can you see just by looking at the graph? What knowledge can you get by just by looking at the graph? Yes, usage and cost, but what are you seeing about the usage and the cost? If this is your organization's, if this is your AWS account and you go to AWS Cost Explorer, right, and then it shows you this, what would you be able to see? Okay, all right, let me build this out. Right, now let's look at this graph. Right, this is your cost. This is how much how much you are spending, right? From this part, this is how much you are spending in thousands. So it means that this is 0,000, this is 5,000, this is 1,000, this is $1,500, this is $2,000, right? Now this is the month. So from this we can say that in May, right, this organization spent, maybe let's say $1,300, right? That's how much they spent. In June, they spent 1,500 or $1,600, right? In July, they spent what? Let's say 1,800, right? Because it's not yet up to the 2,000. So let's say $1,800. Now, just looking at the graph, you can see that it is going up, right? Just looking at this graph, you see that it is going up. What does that mean? It means what they are spending is increasing per month. Just by looking at the graph, you can see that what they are spending is what? Increasing per month, because the graph is what? Is going up. As the month is going, the amount they are spending is what? Is also increasing, right? It means that for this kind of a organization, of this kind of an organization rather, it shows that they are spending more per month. It means they probably have to go and look into what it is that they are doing, that why is our cost increasing every month, right? So it gives them an idea, it provides a trend. They are seeing a trend, and the trend for these people is what? Is that their cost is increasing every month. That is what you can see from the slide, the graph. So that's the advantage of uh Cost Explorer, right? It gives you that general overview, that very quick report, so to say. You don't have to go and start looking for the table and looking for S3 and tracing it, right? It gives you that aggregated report, and then easily draw up your conclusion. Now, also, if you look at the side, you see that they selected what here, they filtered it to say give us information of all the instances that we have, right? But remove this particular three instances, right? So you can, this is just to show you that you can filter it as you like. You can say, okay, only include EC2 instance for T2 micro and M4 large, depending on what you want, right? Also, if you see here, you can choose which availability zone you want to look at. You can choose the region. If you have an account that is linked, you can select that. I want to see only for this particular account. I want to see for only this particular this region, right? So it gives you a graphical view. Do we understand that now? Do we get that? Yes, Akemi. Yes, exactly. Do we all understand now? Yes, Adeshayo. It shows progression of cost. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Happy. Okay, so number two cost management tool, right, is AWS budget. Just like the name sounds, when you hear something budget, it means that yeah, you are creating a budget basically, right? So what the AWS budget does is that it allows you to set a spending limit and usage alert. So it allows you to set a particular limit, right? You are putting, this is the maximum I want to do for this, I want to spend for this. Then you can create the budget for monthly cost or for specific AWS service, or even custom define whatever it is that you want. Right? You can customize it as you want. Now, what are the features of it is that you create a budget, which means you set a financial limit. Like for example, you can say, I want to spend this month, I don't want to spend more than $500, right? You can even set it or limit it to specific services, right? You can say for for EC2, I don't want to spend more than $200, right, in this month. So your maximum limit is what? Is $200 for EC2 instance for the month. Then you can create custom alerts. uh, so what that means is that when you have set that your limit, you have set your budget, right? You create an alert. So the alert is going to send you a message, depending on whatever it is that you choose, or an email, right? When you are closing, let's say maybe you are already getting to like 100 or 120, right? Your limit is 200. It will start notifying you that you spent 120, oh, you spent 150, oh. So it starts alerting you when you are close to that budget, that limit that you have set. You can also set usage budget, right? Say for your EC2 instance, EC2 is charged per hour, right? You can say I only want to keep my EC2 usage under particular what hours. I don't want it to run for more than, maybe in a day, I want it to only run for 8 hours. So which means that you can now set, okay, this is what you should do. If it goes beyond this, it will alert you, so you can decide to go and shut down that instance or stop it or whatever it is that you want to do. Then also, based on what you are currently using, right, it can also help you to what? Forecast. It will tell you to forecast that, oga, by the end of this month, it's possible that you are going to pass your budget though, right? Those are the things that it can do. So it can help you create a limit. You can use it to create a budget. You can use it to create alerts to say, okay, notify me when we're almost getting to my limit, right? You can say, I want to keep uh set a limit for some specific services, right? Then also it will do what? It will forecast for you to say, based as I'm seeing that you are using this thing this month, you would most likely pass your budget though, right? And then you can now use that to make your decisions. So the advantage of it is what? It's proactive, right? It's a proactive thing. So it will notify you before you get to your limit, which will make you do what? take action. You now decide on the action you want to take, right? So it's a proactive service because it notifies you before you hit your limit. Then you can set different budget for different things. You can set budget for teams, you can set budget for services, you can set budget for projects, you can set budget for your S3, you can set budget for EC2. You can say, okay, if we're going to create um maybe account, your login details, right, as students, we will put all of you under a group called students, right, under an I am group called student. I can say all of these people in this group of students must not use more than $200 so in a month, right. And then when people are getting close to it, to notify me that this group is beginning to pass or they are beginning to get to your limit, and then I can go and take action. I can try to remove all of you from AWS from the account, right? So what are the things you can do with AWS budget? And of course, this up here is uh the workflow basically, right? You set your budget, right? You create your budget, you create alert and notification that will alert you. Then you set the action that you want to take um to stay within that budget, right? Or what if you are exceeding the budget, you decide on the action that you want to take. Then below is an example of budget. If you look at this one here, this person has EC2 budget, demo credit budget, total planning budget, EC2 monthly budget, EC2 cost production, right? Now, here you will see the kind of budget, right? This is a cost budget. There's also the usage budget, which is like saying I don't want my institute to use more than maybe 200 hours, for example. That would be a usage kind of budget. But these ones are cost. And to show you where you are presently, right? It will show you what you budgeted and what is forecasting. If you look here, you see that currently for the monthly EC2 credit budget, one minute. Okay, so for the monthly EC2 credit budget, the person is currently at $1,426.61. And what the person budgeted is what? $100 for this particular service, right? And what AWS budget is forecasting is that with the way it's looking at this person is going to spend $1,793. It will now do a comparison of where you are at. Now, this person has used 1,426.61% of his budget. It has exceeded his budget by this amount. For the next one, the demo credit budget, the person's is currently spending 2,303, right? And he budgeted 3,000. You can see here that what is just using about 76.78% of his budget. So this is the way the AWS budget, this is the way it operates. You can set it for different things. But note that it helps you to keep a limit on your spendings or your usage. It helps you to create that limit and alerts you when you are getting close to it so that you can take whatever action you think you need to take to stay within budget or to stay out of the budget, to be dependent on you. Now the last one, Happy, I'm trying to read your message. Like in data usage, the amount of data to utilize either daily, weekly, or monthly, depending on the type of subscription you do. Yes, something like that. All right. Do we all understand AWS budget? Do you all get AWS budget? Now, AWS budget is not giving you any graph. It's not giving you any graphical uh, representation, right? It's not giving you any visualization. You cannot visualize it, so it's like in a table, so to say. All right. Do we all get AWS budgets? Can we fly, like you people say I should be flying now. I should be flying like Mr. Moses. All right, understood. Thank you very much. So let's look at the last one, which is cost and usage report. Cost and usage report. Now, cost and usage report, what it does, it provides very detailed, itemized view of your AWS cost. Right? It's like getting a detailed invoice or receipt that breaks down every single thing you spent money on. Right? This report gives you an in-depth data, including how much you are spending on each service in each region and on what resources. So, cost and usage report is different from Cost Explorer because Cost Explorer gives you that general overview, right? It gives you that aggregated overview of what you are spending. Let's say, for example, if you normally patronize maybe ShopRite, right? You are their regular customer, then um Cost Explorer is like what they will give you. Maybe they'll say, okay, this is what you spent or this month, right? They just tell you this is what you spent. Maybe this is what you spent on bread, or this is what you spent on kidney over a period of time. They'll give you in a graphical way, right? But cost and usage report, they will itemize everything. It is not in what do you call it, in graph. Is in a table or CSV spreadsheets kind of format, right? They will itemize it. Bread on the 12th of October, this is what you spent. Bread on the 13th of October, this is what you spent. Right? They would do it like that. So it's very, very detailed. Just like the key feature I wrote, I said it provides information, granular information. Then you can customize the report, right? You can decide what you want the report to show. You can say, okay, I want reports for only EC2. I want reports for only this particular region. I want report for this, depending on what you want to see, right? And once you create that report, it gives you a very detailed. Let's say, for example, if you create a report for EC2 instance, for example, right, it's going to tell you how much you were spending for each of the EC2 instance at the day that it was running, to give you very, very detailed information. Then another feature of it is that what you can export it, right? Since the data is very, very granular, which means it's going to be large, right? You can export it and use another Power BI tool to analyze it, right? You can use maybe Excel to analyze it, or use Power BI to analyze it, whatever it is you want to do with the data, right? So it gives that very, very detailed information. Then what's the advantage? Of course, the advantage is that what is comprehensive, because it is much more comprehensive than Cost Explorer, right? Because it's giving you every single detail. It will give you breakdown of every dollar that you spend on any AWS resources, to explain it for you. Then it is great for auditing. If you have people coming to audit, right? Maybe for organization that they need to submit their um they need to be audited, right? Maybe at the end of the year to give their profit and loss and all of those things, right? You can give them your AWS cost and usage reports for them to audit. You can't give them cost explorer reports, right? Because it is not very detailed. But you can give them the cost and usage reports, right? Because that one is much more detailed. So it's great for auditing. Of course, you can also customize it, like I said. Right. So this picture here, right, is a company's cost and usage report. So you see, these are different reports that they created. So you can create new reports. So this person created cost economize cost usage, customer cloud keeper, vantage. You can create your own report and say report for um liter student, report for liter facilitator. So what that will do is that it's now going to capture anything that, let's say for facilitators now, it means that whatever I spend, whatever I do in AWS, right, is going to show it. Whatever Mr. Moses does is going to show it, right? In terms of what we are spending on what we created an EC2 instance to tell you on the 8th of October, I created an EC2 instance. This was how much the EC2 instance was for this hour, right? So depending on the time ground, right, you can make it hourly, you can make it daily, depending on what you want. Now you can open each of these reports and then you will now see the full CSV, right? Like this. This is what the CSV file looks like, right? You can see that it's is a lot. You see that it is the time, right? This is the same day. Oh. All of this here is for the same day, 1st of January 2023, right? So it's break it down. That's like that. That's granular, different times, right? Different time of the day. This one, I wish I could enlarge it, right? This is probably like 8 o'clock. This is 12 o'clock. This is 3 o'clock, right? At different times of the day. So it gives you very, very, very granular view of your spendings in AWS. Do we understand cost and usage report? Oh, Debbie, so sorry. Happy to answer your questions. What happened when you exceed your budget before your desired time? So, like I said, it will notify you when you are even getting close, right? It should notify you when you are getting close. So when it notifies you that you are going to you're already, let's say if you set a budget of $200, right, and you're already at 150, it will notify you that you're already at 150 or your budget is 200 though. So you can now decide to say, oh, this thing that is making me spend, I don't want to spend up to I don't want to spend more than 200, and then you monitor it, and when it's 200 you either stop the instance, or you can say, this workload is very, very important, I need it, I cannot stop it, and you do whatever you use, or you spend more than your budget. So it is at your prerequisite, right? There's a resource that you can also use to set to say, oh, if I hit 200, shut down the instance, right? There's another resource you can attach that when it monitors your budget and your spending, you can use it to set to say shut it down, or stop it, or something, whatever it is that you want. So it is at your prerequisite, whatever you want to do at that moment. Okay, so do you all understand cost explorer, AWS budgets, and cost and usage report? So this is also a table to show the differences between the three of them, right? Like your cost explorer, you can visualize, right? For AWS budget, you use to set and to track budget limit. For cost usage report, it provides detailed itemized report, right? Primary use of cost explorer is for cost analysis, to track your the trend, whether you're spending more or you're spending less or you're spending the same thing, right? For AWS budget is to for budget management and to alert you so that you don't overspend, right? For cost and usage reports, you can use it for financial reporting, for detailed auditing, and etc. So you will see this in the slide, right? Visualization. Cost Explorer has a graphical interface, right? Which means it gives you graphs. You can visualize it. While for AWS budget, there's no direct visualization. For cost and usage too, there's no visualization. It is CSV file that you will see. Okay, so I'm going to add more to these resources before the slide is uploaded. So any questions? Are we good with everything? Any question? Any question at all? Lizzie, so sorry. Oh, you can always come back to rewatch the video. Sorry about the light. Any questions, or can we move to our knowledge check? If we can move to our knowledge check, please just type knowledge check so that we can quickly move to our knowledge check. We still have 10 minutes. Knowledge check. All right. Thank you. Okay, so let's see how well we grasped everything I've been saying since morning. So, question one: which of the following AWS pricing models allow you to pay only for what you use without any upfront commitment? Which one allows you to pay only for what you use? Reserved instance, spot instance, pay as you go, or savings plan? C, 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 C. Okay, let's see if we are queried. Yes, yeah, we're correct. So the pay as you go, or which is also known as on demand, don't forget, I can say on demand, I can say pay as you go, is one that allows you, is a pricing model that allows you to pay only for what you use. All right. Question two. So this is scenario based, right? So you are managing a cloud project with a very tight budget of $500, right? So your organization, the management has said we don't have more than $500 to give you today, to give you to spend on AWS for the month. Which AWS tool would you use to ensure that you don't exceed this budget? And how can you be alerted if you're about to exceed it? So which tool would help you so that you don't exceed this budget, that it will alert you when you are about to exceed it? This one is easy now. B, B. Okay, these ones are easy questions. All right, B. So let's see. Yes, so our answer is B, AWS budget. Just like the name, like I said, it helps you to set your spend limits and alerts you when you're about to exceed it. All right. Question three. You want to identify which AWS service is consuming the most resources in your current setup. Which AWS tool would help you to visualize this information easily? Which AWS tool will help you to visualize it easily? A. AWS cost and usage report. B. AWS budget. C. AWS cost explorer. D. AWS pricing calculator. I'm saying A and C, A and C, A and C. Okay, so let's check which one is the right answer. The right answer is actually C. Right, so for those that chose A, please note one of the major difference between Cost Explorer and Cost and Usage Report is that Cost Explorer will allow you to visualize. Visualize means that to give you graph, you'll be able to see what the information you want via graph, right? And since you can always set it to different resources, you can see which resources what is spending the most money, right? If you are using EC2 and S3, for example, the graph will show you EC2 and S3. S3 will probably be on top, so you'll be able to see which one is bigger, right? Let's quickly go back to that our cost explorer. 1 minute, let me run. Okay, can we see this cost explorer? Can we see the cost explorer slide? Can we all see it? Okay, so let's use this to explain, right? Now you see this purple is for this particular EC2 instance C3 M4.8 large. The green, this deep green is for M4.2 large. This light green is for M3 medium, right? Now, this is how much they are spending. Just by looking at this graph, you see that in May, which service took the most money in May? Which service took the most money? Looking at this graph, remember purple is C3 8 large, this green is M4 2 large, this light green is M3 medium. So if you are looking at the month of May, which service would you say took the most money for the month of May? C3, right? So this is something that the cost explorer helps you to do. You can quickly see from the graph, is helping you to visualize it, right? It's helping you to visualize it. If you look at the 3 months, you will see that it is still purple, right? That is taking the largest part of the money. Even though the cost of the M4 increased, right, in July and in June, but it is still not as much as what the C3. So the cost explorer helps you to visualize. You can quickly visualize and see which service is actually taking the most of your money, right? Which one you are spending less on. Hope that is understood. Compared to this one, in this one now, when do you want to start looking at each of the service to know which one is costing you? So cost explorer is one that allows you to easily and quickly see the trend in your spending, right? For this cost and usage report, because it is very very detailed, you need to use another tool to analyze it to be able to get the trend. So that's why the answer to question 3 is cost explorer. Do we get that now? Do we all understand? For those that said A, understood? Okay, I have 2 more minutes. All right. Okay, thank you everyone. Right, so question 4. Your online store experiences an unexpected traffic spike during a sale, and you want to scale your compute capacity quickly without committing to long-term cost. Which AWS pricing model is the most effective for handling this short-term fluctuating demand? Remember, it is short-term. You don't want to do you don't want to commit to anything long-term. Then it is what? Fluctuating. Then it is not a standard thing, it is an unexpected traffic. So which one would you use? If you guys don't get this one, I will not I won't mind, because I know it's a very tricky question. Okay, so let's check the answer. Yes, the answer is B. And why is it B? Because one, if you are doing reserved instance, it means that you are committing to a long-term use, right? You can do pay as you go, right? You can do pay as you go, but since the traffic is what is unexpected, it's probably is very very short term. It's probably for a very short term time, right? Just like this stated here, that it is short term, right? You can use what spot instances. Why? Because spot instances will give you more discounts than pay as you go. Pay as you go will never give you discounts. You will pay lesser with spot instances, and since it is short term, right? You don't need it for a very long period of time. The spot instance is better, even though you can use the pay as you go, but in terms of cost, right? The spot instance will be much more better for you. That is say the most cost effective will be the spot instance. So for that short period of time that you need it, you'll be paying you enjoy 90% discount. All right, so thank you. Last question. It's 9 o'clock already. Last question. Which of the following is a key feature of the AWS cost and usage reports? This one should be easy. Which of the following is a key feature of the AWS cost and usage report? A. Provide detailed line by line breakdown of all your AWS costs. B. Sends alerts when your spending approach your budget. C. Visualizes your cost trend. D. Automatically optimize your AWS resources. This one should be very easy. Your cost and usage report. Now remember, cost and usage reports is the one we talked about last, and it is A. Cost and usage report is one that I said will give you very, very, very detailed, granular information about your spending. Line by line breakdown. It will explain every kobo, every dollar that you have spent in the AWS cloud. So that is what cost and usage is. B, the one that will send you alerts when your spending is approaching budget is AWS budget, not cost and usage report. It's AWS budget that will send you alerts when your spending is approaching budget. While the one that will visualize your cost trend is Cost Explorer. And none of them will automatically, there's none of them that will automatically optimize your AWS resources. Right? None of them will automatically do that. That's why D is not your answer. So the answer to this is A. Cost and usage report provides detailed line by line breakdown. All right. Are we good to go? In the next class. Ciao. Good night, everyone. Love you all. So happy. It says type error. No problem. It's fine. Understood. Understood. Understood it. All right. Bye, everyone. Love you all. And keep up the good work.